Yeah, just a little bit.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Dom DeMarco's Pizzeria and Wine Bar here at 9785 West Charleston Boulevard in Las Vegas on this beautiful patio for once again the Jim Feist Handicapping Show. My name is Tommy Canale. I'll be the host for the show. With me every week, obviously, is going to be the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Feist. We have a couple guests with us today. One's a returner, one's a newbie, but not really a newbie to the sports betting world. But our returner is a guy who's the Long Shots podcast. The guy's making a killing it in golf. He has to. In Wes Reynolds from Indiana. Wes, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm glad to be back.
We got the Masters coming up.
That's
Are you
right,
ready?
we do. That's right.
I am, man. We got to get through this end of the Florida swing and this little tournament we have.
This little tournament we're going to talk about. And then a new guy with us who's the senior NBA betting analyst and on-air host for Vegas Stats, Sports Information Network, Primetime VSiN. He goes by JVT, Jonathan Von Tobel. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. I've heard so much about it, so I'm finally glad to make my first appearance.
Yeah, it was fun to be with you and Matt on Monday, too.
Yeah.
That was fun. That was a good time.
Yeah, well, Matt, I think Matt said he's going to come down, so I got to be on my best behavior. So I got to impress Matt, you know?
Let's get into it. Brackets are out. The Dom's Bracket Challenge is going on. You can get your brackets filled out. You can fill out 2 brackets, get them turned in here to the restaurant before close tomorrow night, Wednesday at 9 p.m. The winner gets a $300 food voucher. Second place, $200. Third place, $100. Jim, I mean, $300 worth of food at Dom's. That's one of the best. Wait, not the best. It is 5 times running in a row best pizza.
Well, it's more than pizza.
Yes, it
First
is.
of all, staff, Albert, the staff, everything else. First of all, we've enjoyed doing the show for 25, 30 times. And,
Whatever, yeah.
And the food here, eat here all the time. Order here, Grubhub delivers it, and so does, so it's the best. For me, the best Italian food in Las Vegas. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Outside the Bracket Challenge, the next 2 days, for the first 2 days of the tournament, this place will open up at like 8:30 in the morning, I believe it is, or 8:45 for you to come down and watch the games here at Dom's. They got TVs everywhere. You can get pizza, you can get pasta, you can get chicken wings, you can get meatballs, you can get desserts. Best wine, best booze, best beer, best everything. Get to Dom's. We're here. Let's talk about the madness, Jim, and then bring in these 2 guys. I know you filled out your brackets. The madness is going to start. But what I want to start with this is with you, because I think I know where Wes is going to go, and I'm interested what JVT is going to say. Your thoughts. Indiana, should they have been in or out of this tournament?
Well, I like to focus on the positives and not the negatives. I mean, you could have made a great argument that West Virginia should have been there.
Sure.
I mean, and I think the governor is going to sue everybody in sight to, But now they lost their coach at West Virginia, so now they have to figure that one out. But then North Carolina goes out there last night, and they just made a mockery of the whole damn thing.
I love San Diego State. They didn't show up.
Well, the Mountain West, I mean, I'm going to let these guys, they can talk about that. They know the stats. They work with, Steve Mackinnon did a little article on it, and I know they talk about it on the air. I know these 2 guys, but I really don't know them. I see them so much online, so I actually know them, sort of. It's like an online relationship.
JVT, before I go to you, Wes, Indiana in? I know you're an Indiana guy, but
They didn't deserve to be in. They had plenty of opportunities. I think they should have been in over North Carolina. That seems foolish based on what we saw with the Tar Heels last night. But don't we always see that in the NCAA tournament where the team that's the first bet I made, actually. The team that we all crap on, it's like, hey, they shouldn't have been in the tournament. They didn't have enough wins. And then they come out and steamroll San Diego State. So, no surprise that I think they won. Maybe surprising the margin. But I think not surprising. But yeah, Indiana had their chances. I'd have had Indiana, West Virginia, and over Carolina and Xavier, but didn't happen. And you leave your fate in the hands of the committee, and that's what happens to you.
JVT, West Virginia, was this possible a payback from the NCAA? Was it a year or so ago? They sued the NCAA over something and win, and now they're on the bubble, and then the UNC guy is on the commissioner, and they get ousted. Could this have been a little payback?
I think it could have. I'm more of the thought process, right, where it's actually incompetence, not malice, where you get to half of these things, right? So maybe it's just people just don't know what they're doing. But I'd lean toward Wes's line of thinking here, where I think you can make the argument for Indiana, but I think at the end of the day, either one of these teams outside of North Carolina, I'd have been happy seeing it in. And look, it just doesn't look good when you have a athletic director at the top being part of the decision making, and there's absolutely no way they weren't talking about this. He left the room when they spoke, but when they were getting crappy coffee and doing all the other stuff, of course.
What happens if they eliminate him and he walks back into the room? Does he kill them all?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he doesn't get his $100,000 that he paid off. I'm thinking gave somebody a little bit of juice under the table. That's just my thought. JVT, what do you think is the toughest region?
I mean, I think out of all of them right now, I would probably go with the Midwest. I think there's some intriguing teams in there. When you're talking about the ability of Utah State, Tennessee, I think there's some, I think an undervalued team in Houston that a lot of people are sleeping on. Clemson's got some really good potential. Gonzaga and Georgia, I think, some quality squad. So Midwest, I think, has got some intrigue to it, for sure.
West,
I agree. Midwest for me was the toughest because
I thought
Houston,
so too.
you look in that second round, Gonzaga maybe a little bit overrated by the metrics guys. I know the KenPom has them top 10, so that looks like a really strong 8 seed. Georgia with a lottery pick and Asa Newell starting to play really well. And I think when you get to the bottom, Illinois, are they healthy? If they're healthy, they can play with anybody in the country. And then you got Tennessee there at the bottom, who's kind of a mirror image of Houston. They're really good defensively, can make a lot of threes, shoot a high percentage. So I think Houston got the toughest draw. I think Duke probably got the
easiest pass.
Yes.
You brought up Illinois, and they, for me, have been a team I could not figure out all year. Even when they're healthy, they get on a roll, and then all of a sudden they just disappear for a game. It's like they I don't know where they went. Like they went wherever San Diego State went last night. All of a sudden, Illinois doesn't show up, and then the next game they come out like gangbusters. You see the same thing, Jim?
Yeah. It's a long season. You're going to have your ups and downs, of course. And these are kids. They're out. They have other lives outside of the basketball court. So yeah, you're going to have it. It's a long season, 30 games. I don't expect them to play well every night or badly every night. But I don't know what the hell happened last night at San Diego State unless
They stayed
you
in San
just
Diego.
knocked the Mountain West totally. I mean, and for the last 20 years, I guess you could knock. Based on the stats, they don't look too good.
JVT, you have Illinois advancing, or you had the 11 seed?
I think I have Illinois advancing. I don't think it's really that much to ask them to win the first round, but I think to your overall point here of what we're going to see from them, I find it hard to judge them considering they had that stretch where they were all sick, right? They were dealing with that illness. Part of that was when they went to Madison Square Garden late in the year and they got smoked by Duke. I think there's just this really big patch of data that we don't know because they've been dealing with that. And the upside of this Illinois team, I think, is a team that can win multiple games in the NCAA tournament.
Let me ask you this, JVT. What team do you think is the most... I'm not talking about a sleeper. Maybe somebody like a Gonzaga or somebody like an 8-9 team or a 7 team that you think can make some serious damage in this tournament that maybe is a little bit lower seed than they should be?
I'm going to, at the risk of looking awful in a couple of days, considering what we just watched yesterday, I will say New Mexico. I like New Mexico a lot. This is a different team than they were last year. They are much better up front. They have some really good, versatile size. Nelly Jr. Joseph is a fantastic shot blocker and rebounder. Donovan Dent, more often than not, is going to be the best player on the floor when they're playing. They're very well coached. They're a good offensive rebounding team. They were second best in the Mountain West. They're a good defensive rebounding team, which I think plays in a really big role in this game against Marquette. I think that I think a lot of people would be shocked, especially after last year. They got embarrassed by Clemson. That was a different group. I think this squad is going to be primed to pull this off against Marquette and maybe push Michigan State if Bryant doesn't get them in the first round.
You?
What do you think about this Colorado State being favored at 12 over a 5?
I think it's right. So if
I think it's right too.
Yeah. So if you sort, they're on this 10-game winning streak. If you go by Bartorvik, which is a great site, and you sort since the start of this winning streak, he's got them as the 8th best team in the country. That they are a top 25 team of both offense and defense. They have a NBA player on this roster, Nick Clifford. He's going to be in the association. He's a very good player. And again, you talk about this whole field. I think Niko Medved's one of the better coaches in the field too. So I think it is right. If we're looking at this team since about February 15th, it's one of the best teams in the country.
Tyrese Hunter, also the point guard for Memphis, did not play in the American Championship game, even though they were able to pull away from UAB late. So he is questionable with the foot issue. The one concern for Colorado State, and this can apply to, I think, a few other teams in the tournament, as you mentioned earlier, Tommy, we got the coaching carousel going.
Yeah.
And Niko Medved's going to be on that carousel.
For
It's
sure.
going to be next stop Minneapolis because he is going to take over at Minnesota for Ben Johnson.
Yep, so I'm hearing too.
You wonder how this is going to be. We actually, it was just breaking as we came on the air that Will Wade at McNeese State is going to take over at NC State. So it's like, how do these guys react? It's like, okay, this is our last ride together as a family, or it's like, well, the coach is abandoning us, so, what are we going to do? So that makes it, I think, a very interesting handicap, because all the jobs are opening, and one job opens, another job fills, another job opens, so that's going to be interesting to watch.
It might be nice to let these carousels open up after the tournament's over.
It would be,
Yeah,
but
sure.
hell, the transfer portal is next week.
I
Right?
know,
You know what
I know.
To your point, Wes.
Which means they're already talking.
Yes.
Nico could be already got 4 guys going with him to Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah.
Colorado State might be a shell of what they look like next year. Because with the portal, these guys are talking like, Coach, I'll go with you. You're going to Minnesota, I'll go with you. That type of thing.
No question about it. And you see that, I think, routinely. Look at Drake this year, who are the 11 playing Missouri. Basically, an entire Division II team comes with Ben McCollum. It's like, oh, these guys can't compete. And they win the Missouri Valley Championship regular season and the tournament. So there's something to be said for continuity, and that's the thing about the portal. You got to remake your roster like every single year.
So the early part of the season, November, December, when they're putting it all together and trying to create the chemistry, you kind of have to throw some of that stuff out and start looking at the later part of the year, like Colorado State, how they ended up there. I mean, whether that applies or not, but the point is, the early part, they're still working on script.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, Humans and I talked about this yesterday on Decent Primetime, where you could look at San Diego State as a team that beat Houston in the non-conference.
Right.
You can also look at San Diego State as a team that was scrapping with San Jose State multiple times, got swept by UNLV, and wasn't playing well down the stretch. And I think that does matter. Recent form does matter a really big time. North Carolina, the only 2 games they've lost over the last, month and a half?
Now they're favored over Mississippi.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's another 11 seed over a 6. So
Yeah, right.
A double digit, over a single digit. Let me ask you guys, let me bring up a team. I'm curious to what your thoughts are on Wisconsin. JVT, I'll go to you.
So I like Wisconsin quite a bit, and this is going to be a little bit more because I'm an NBA guy, but they do have an NBA guy on their staff that has really kind of ramped up the way they're playing basketball, the analytically sound, right? Emphasis on three-point shooting shots at the rim and playing with a little bit more tempo than we're used to. I like a lot of what they're doing, and I think they've got some really good personnel on this roster that has worked out really well. Kind of a little bit of a dud at the end of the year, but I think coming into this, they play a brand of basketball that I think will serve them well in neutral court setting.
They got damaged a lot by playing 4 games in 4 days against Michigan. They hit 6 out of 39 from 3.
Yeah.
I mean, and in the first game they hit 19 out of 34. I mean, some crazy number like that. 4 games in 4 days is not good.
Yeah, I think this team's going to be primed to do quite a bit of damage here, especially with the way they play offense.
They cover 17 against Montana?
I think that's certainly possible, yes. I'll tell you this much. I don't want Montana.
Another conference that's been horrible in this tournament is the Big Sky. Now, it's hard to compare to Mountain West because they only get one. The conference champion gets in, but they just have not covered numbers. Now, I think the market, they opened Wisconsin higher. Wise guys came in on Montana, and I think it's now been beaten into place because Wisconsin, like Jim mentioned, you have to turn around and play on a Thursday. After you played that gauntlet in the Big Ten tournament, we saw what a grinder game that was against Michigan in the championship game. Now you got to go play. I think the altitude angle probably overrated, even though Montana is an altitude team. But at 17, it's probably right. I would go over in that game.
I was going to ask about the total. You think that'll break down as being over?
I do.
152 is where it's at right
I
now.
don't watch Montana in that Big Sky tournament, and I don't want to put so much weight in one game. They played Northern Colorado in the championship game. I think both those teams are like shooting over 70% at one point in the game, and this was early in the second half. So Montana pretty permissible on defense, and Wisconsin, like John mentioned, running a little bit more tempo, really have changed their offense. They're not that rock fight team where they kind of look like a Virginia.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, slow it down, make a shot at the end of the shot clock. All the games are in the 60s. Not anymore. And credit Greg Gard and his staff for making that adjustment. Wisconsin, I do think, is dangerous.
To your point, I have been saying for a couple of years, the championship game of the Big Ten, both those teams, if they're in the tournament, should be playing on Friday, as well as the winner of the American Conference, which was Memphis. They'd all should be going to Friday. Mm-hmm. There's too many other conferences that were done way earlier. They can put them on Thursday. There's no reason to put these teams on a Thursday and move these other teams to Friday. It makes no sense in my book. Give them another day's rest. They made a statement going, well, Michigan has the last game on Thursday. So what? Give them another night's rest. Let them rest up a little again. They just won the Big Ten.
I mean, I vote just take all the conference championships off of Sunday and let's have Selection Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning.
I like that idea a whole lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can focus on my golf and don't have to play golf now. The brackets are being announced.
Wes, let me go. BYU and VCU, 3.5's the line, 146 total. What do you like, if anything?
I saw both. I like both these teams. I hate the fact that they're playing each other because I really like VCU and BYU to go forward, but now we're going to lose one of them. So I'm going to. Well, my original bet, I took VCU. I'm still on them.
You took a 3.5?
Yeah, I did. I'm not happy they're playing each other because I like both of them.
Wes, what do you think on this game?
Yeah, I'm with you, Jim. I took VCU in the points as well. VCU, their defense, if you watch them A-10 championship, by the way, on Sunday against George Mason, that defense is absolutely for real. And they're veteran guys, too. There's a lot of seniors on this team. Now, there's another coach, Ryan Odom, who may be leaving, maybe taking the Virginia job, perhaps. He seems to be the front runner. But all these guys that came in and transferred, Shulga, the kid that was at Utah State for a couple years with Ryan Odom. I think BYU, I wonder, they got hot late in the year, right, where they won at Iowa State and they won at Arizona. So they're capable. If you're winning there, you can win anywhere. But I think BYU got maybe has a little bit of regression coming their way in terms of the shooting a little bit, and just kind of got hot at the end of the season. So everybody wants to play that hot team, right? Well, if everything's matchup dependent, VCU arguably one of the better defenses in the country, and I think because they pressure you too, they run a little bit. It's not the Shaka Smart havoc of years past, but they still run a little bit of that pressure defense because they want to slow you down offensively. They don't want to necessarily speed you up. They want to slow you down where it's like, okay, it was a chore to get it across the 10-second line. Now we got a 30-second shot clock, and you're at 17 seconds left before you're even looking at the basket to run an offensive set. So that's what VCU likes to do to you.
So you took VCU in the points. You taking the BYU straight up in the bracket?
I did. I put them forward in the bracket.
JVT?
I think VCU wins this game, so we'll make it 3 for 3. One of the things that you really like is their defense. Number 1 in the country in effective field goal percentage defense. They are an elite defensive team, defensive rating 25th in the country. They play really well on that end. They're actually an elite offensive rebounding team as well. BYU isn't a bad defensive rebounding team by any stretch, but VCU should be able to grab some of these extra possessions too. And I like that with some of these teams, some of these others that we can talk about. But when I can get an underdog that I feel like is going to be able to steal some extra possessions, I think you're in a pretty good spot. And they're, I think, the much better defensive team. Some of the defensive metrics for BYU, like they were playing in spite of them. The defense hasn't been great, especially away from home. So I think VCU can win this game and move on.
I'm going to stay right here in the East with a couple more games. One game that I have flipped back and forth, I think it could even go to a pick 'em. It may already be a pick 'em, is Baylor, Mississippi State. I haven't been impressed with Baylor all that much all year long. They get into the tournament as an 8, and I thought they might have been a bubble team, so they obviously were not a bubble team. And Mississippi State has been a team that has given up 80, 90 points, which Chris Jans doesn't like to do. He likes to play the defense. I don't think he has the horses, but this game to me is intriguing. Jim, do you like this game at all? Or if so, who'd you pick to win?
I don't like the game. Baylor has been so inconsistent. They're thought of highly, like Kansas in the beginning of the year. Everybody thought they were going to be great. Very inconsistent. I don't know what to make of them. And of course, anytime you're dealing with SEC teams, you're going to get the high rating, you get the high strength of schedule, everything going that way. But they're all playing each other all the time. So you have the potential for all these quad one matchups because they're playing in that conference. It's very hard. For me, I stayed away from it.
JVT?
Yeah, I think I don't really love this a lot, but I'll say this. Like, I would lean squarely in Baylor's direction. One of the things that sticks out about Mississippi State's profile is they give up a ton of threes at a really high rate, and Baylor, I think, could take advantage of that. I don't think that I would feel really confident, but I go back to the Baylor comeback against Kansas, right? They started bombing away from three, really started to hit some shots. Their offense can be hit or miss, but if it's going to be hit against a Miss State team that ranks 314th in the country in opponent three-point shooting, I think that might be something that works in Baylor's favor.
Baylor came back against Texas Tech in that Big 12 tournament. Now, Texas Tech was without like 2 starters, so you got to put that into context. But what they did is they went to that zone. They went to that 2-3 zone, and they're going to do that, I think, against Mississippi State, who's not a very good three-point shooting team at all. They're like in the 300s in terms of ranking in college basketball. And Mississippi State doesn't see a lot of zone. Yeah, it's a lot of man-to-man in that conference. You know, a lot of pressure defense in the backcourt. Missouri probably is the biggest zone team they see in the SEC. So, yeah, lean Baylor, but this is coin flippy. This is maybe like a live betting game when a team gets a lead, bet the underdog, because I don't think you're going to get a lot of margin necessarily in this game. I think there's going to be a lot of ebbs and flows, a lot of comebacks. This is about as 8-9 as you get, I think, in the tournament, and that's really what it's designed to be. These should be close.
You like a lot of second halves in your handicapping repertoire. Huh? When you look at that, are you looking for the team that's? What do you see to make those decisions?
Yeah, you got to look at little different things in the box score. The foul situation, obviously. Are the refs calling a lot of fouls? Do you have both teams at like 10 fouls and the double bonus in the first half? That's probably going to continue into the second half. And then the closer the game is, usually, I favor a little bit more of the under, because if it's, one possession or tied with 3-4 minutes to go, you're all of a sudden going to see these teams slow the ball down and work that shot clock a little bit. And now you run the risk of, if you have a second half under, that it's going to go to overtime.
And all the fouls at the end.
That's the risk you have to take. Like, margin is good for overs because it guarantees a foul fest in terms of a total. Now, when it's, a team up by 1 or 2 possessions, it's like, okay, we're not going to foul here. We're going to play it out. And all of a sudden that clock is tick, 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 right? So that's your friend, and then that, I think, benefits for unders. So that's what I like to do a lot with totals. I know a lot of people are going to like these first half unders. I don't think you can necessarily play them blindly, but you're going to see, if you're looking at any type of odds screen, you're going to see a lot of these first half.
I heard somebody that they're betting every game in the first half under.
Yeah, if you want,
that's a little bit out there.
Well,
maybe it's only $5 a game. Yeah. I don't know.
You know what, Jim? In that, I will say this: typically in the first round, Thursday, Friday, first half, you see more fouls called by the officials. It's like they're also being looked at, so they want to make sure they're calling everything, and I think they're a little bit tense as well.
Because they want to get regions.
They want to get moved on.
Absolutely.
So they're starting to make a little bit more calls. Things are called a little bit tighter. So sometimes that can play into.
For what it's worth, since 2011, first half unders in the first round since they expanded, 258, 193, and 17. So 57% of first halves have gone under. Having said that, right, it's a large sample size. We also saw, I think it was last year, it was a losing year if you did it. And yesterday, the first 2 games, both of them went over.
So we're already broke.
Exactly. Yeah,
last year was such an anomaly, too, because it was a very chalky year.
It was.
It was a very chalky year, ATS. It's like, okay, where are the upsets, right? Because that's like the first thing I look to. It's like, okay, where are the upsets going to come from? I usually always think that they want one in that first window on Thursday, so I always look at the early tip times, and it's like, because they want that commercial, the madness, and everybody exploding because some top seed got knocked out. So I always think that there's one very early, that first session or two, and I'm trying to figure out who that is going to be this year.
Speaking of madness, a friend of mine told me this last night, and I said, wow, I haven't thought about that, but you may be spot on. He said, I think this year's madness isn't going to be so much that we have a lot of big upsets, but we have a lot of big shots at the end of games, and maybe teams hang on to win in advance, and we see some really close games and people just hitting shot after shot. Like, you might be onto something right there. Let's move on to the Midwest, Jim. I want to ask you about a game that I've heard more and more talk about, and that's Gonzaga in Georgia. The line is 6, 150.5 on the over. What do you like?
When you look at the Gonzaga numbers, when you look at all the ratings, the Tarvik and the Ken Plum and everything, I mean, this Gonzaga team has big numbers. They just look better than what people think they are. And put them on an 8 line. Maybe they should have been a little bit lower than that. I mean, I don't know what lower.
You mean higher, like a higher seed?
Like a 6 or a 5 or something like that. Yeah, because these numbers that they generate are in these analytics are very, very good, excellent, and they look like they could beat everybody by 20, but they haven't played like that all year. I mean, they did lose twice to St. Mary's. They pulled out the third matchup. I don't know, game was in the 50s or something, but there's a lot of talent. They got Pew there. They've been there a lot. They have not been the target this year that they have been in the past, because you kind of looking at them in that conference they play, and they weren't rated that high. But they're tough. If they come and play their game, they're very dangerous.
JVT, here's what I've been hearing. Gonzaga to win, Georgia to cover.
I think that's probably fair. So we have a contest over at VEASAN with the college hoops, and I used Georgia as one of the 12 that we had to select. And part of my thinking is, and I've tried to do this a couple of times, I was on St. Mary's in the 3 of them. The last one obviously did not go so well in that matchup, but I thought Gonzaga at times has been a pretty overvalued team. Obviously, the market's pretty stubborn with the way they've rated them. To this day, they would be rated higher than St. Mary's, and there is some logic to it to an extent. But I also think when we've seen this team at its lowest, it's been with an inconsistent defensive effort. We've seen a lot. You know, the lost Oregon State defensive rating of over 120, you go through it. It's been some really big red numbers when it comes to their play on defense. And if you're going to show up against a Georgia team that I think can get you inside, I think that's going to be one where they can at the very least stay inside of that number.
I'm on Georgia as well. I'm not on the best number looking at the screen, though. There seemed to be a little bit of move on Gonzaga this morning, so I got 6.5. I did not get some 7s that are out there in the market, but I agree with John. I think that Gonzaga, maybe a little bit overvalued by the metrics guys, by the Ken Palm guys and the Torviks and all the other metric sites, and they're still very potent offensively. Now, how good are they defensively? And I think Georgia kind of figured it out late in the season, because this was an absolute bubble team. They were like 4-10 in SEC play. Now, there's no shame in that because it's a historic year for the SEC. And then they won their last 4, beat Florida, won at Texas, won at South Carolina, beat Vanderbilt. Like, there were no bad wins or losses in the SEC because of how good it was. One and done in the conference tournament. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think Georgia safely put themselves in. And now they're learning to play together because there were some holdovers, there were some transfers in the portal. Then you get the kid Newell, who more than likely is at least a mid-first round pick for them out of Montverde. So Georgia, I think, is starting to play better. And it feels like they're a little bit of an afterthought in this game because we're looking Houston-Gonzaga. They're going to match up in the second round. What a tough matchup in the 1-8 for Houston. Well, maybe not so fast here. I thought Georgia 6.5 was a little rich.
Let me ask you this, Wes. What I always find funny is everybody watches Selection Sunday, and when those guys start getting on a double-digit seed that's going to advance and get to the Sweet 16, man, the public goes crazy with it. And this year seems to be a High Point to beat Purdue.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure High Point has enough to get past Purdue. And the line is 8. The total's 153. First off, do you think High Point can beat Purdue straight up?
I don't know. I think I picked it in one of my brackets just to have something different. And I don't like all the trendy upsets. I mean, you were referring to it, Tommy. Maybe the Seth Davis curse.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's like, I don't want to be on that one now because now he's because that has a tendency not to happen. But High Point, one thing I will say about them, they are legit offensively. Now, they're top 25 in offensive efficiency, but you do have to look at the competition they played. They didn't play anybody in the Power 5.
No.
In the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, ACC, Big East, they didn't play anybody. Their best win was over a pretty decent North Texas team who's in the American, but I think High Point runs good stuff, and they will be able to score in this game, but Purdue is a different class altogether because I'm looking at even last year, High Point, I think, played Georgia, and they lost by 8. That was the only Power 5 opponent they played. So I think High Point's going to score, but I think Purdue's going to score too. And this is a different level of player that you're playing against a experienced backcourt, 2 3-year starters in that backcourt with Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer. So I like the over more.
There you go, Jim.
Game.
There's an over first half for you right here.
That's what I bet. I bet the over in the game. You could get some backdoor cover here. With the number's big, but I like the over better.
Yeah.
JVT?
I kind of always tend to lean toward maybe we're overreacting at times, right? Especially with the one-way traffic.
Yeah.
But there is a very big matchup that does stick out. It's one of the worst 2-point defenses in the field taking on one of the better 2-point offenses. And if you're going to have issues defending the rim like Purdue does at times, I think that does not bode well. But I think it's better for betting that over, like you're talking about, maybe than picking High Point to pull the opposite outright. I mean, near the beginning of Big Ten play, Purdue metrically looked like it was going to be one of the better teams in the country overall. And then they really fell off with that defense. I think that maybe we're, especially at this point, if you didn't get 10.5 when it first opened, I think you're sitting back and waiting for something better.
Alan Huss, by the way, the High Point head coach, very familiar with this program. He was a guy that coached high school in Indiana for several years, Culver Military, La Lumiere, which is kind of like the equivalent to what Findlay Prep was out here. Get a lot of kids, getting in from all over the country that are highly touted recruits. So very well adept, I think. He's going to know what Purdue runs. Now, do they have the athletes to hang for 40 minutes?
Let me get into the West. I want to start with Drake, Missouri, and here's where I want to go with this. Drake, the last couple of years, gets all this hype going into the tournament, and then they don't produce in the tournament. McCollum's name is up for Iowa. He may already have one foot out the door and into Iowa. They've been hyped up again. Yes, it's a different team. They keep saying it's a different team every year. The line is 6, total 132. Is this just another year we're going to see Drake fall, or JVT? Do you think this year Drake can beat Missouri?
No, I mean I'll fall for it here this time, because I think the matchup actually works out really well for them. Missouri, first off, down the stretch, their defense completely fell apart.
It did.
Over their last 7 games, they're about 220th or so in the country in defensive rating. They've been absolutely terrible. They are not a good defensive rebounding team. I think officially right now they're sitting at 300th in the country in defensive rebounding rate. They give up a ton of second chance opportunities. Drake's a great offensive rebounding team. So if you're not going to be able to keep them off the offensive glass, they should be able to get you second chance opportunities. You're a very low floor defense, which means you're going to raise the floor of any offense you face. Drake is a very good offensive team at that. They fit the mold of a team that you want. They play slow. They're a decent three-point shooting team in terms of percentage. I think they fit all the categories to be able to not only stay inside of this number, but beat Missouri outright. I think Missouri's a team that's been fading down the stretch.
Wes?
I didn't bet this game. I did advance Drake in the bracket. And yeah, what John pointed out is absolutely true. It's, fast versus slow. I think in this game, in fact, Drake's slowest team in the country in terms of average possession length. I think it's 22 seconds. I believe I was reading that's the longest average possession length in the Ken Palm database in like 10 years. So this is a team, if they can just hold their own on the glass, they're a solid rebounding team. There's going to be times Missouri's going to be having to play defense for like a full minute. And I think that team could get frustrated because they want to run up and down. They're very athletic. They're very talented too. This is a Missouri team that they finally got those transfer guys healthy that weren't healthy last year when they were bottom of the conference. But I think Drake is such a frustrating team to play against because they keep it down in the 50s and the 60s, and they've kind of disappointed in recent years where they have a lot of hype. Well, when DeVries, now the new IU coach, was there, where they would have a lead late and then they couldn't make a shot. That's a concern, but it'd be Drake or pass for me.
You know who this team reminds me of, this Drake team, is the Brad Stevens early Butler teams. That would absolutely just frustrate you and grind you to death until you finally broke and they just took over a game.
It's very, very frustrating to play this team.
It's what this team reminds me of.
They could easily frustrate Missouri because they're not going to like playing at this pace.
Let me ask you about another game in the West that I think is intriguing, a matchup with Self versus Calipari and Kansas versus Arkansas. Lines 4.5, total 145.5.
Oh boy, you got some 2 old coaches here that had
2 Hall of Famers.
They put. I mean, what a matchup! The committee did something right here. They put these 2 guys together. We actually know the coaches. I take Arkansas plus the points.
Well, I think they want Calipari and Pitino in the round 2 is what they're really looking for here.
I favor Arkansas a little bit, but there's no real reason. It's certainly not a big play at all. Neither team. You could see Calipari blowing leads at the end of the game like he did a couple games ago, and himself has said, this is one of the best teams in the country at the beginning of the year, and they just totally fell off.
JVT, let me ask you this. Kansas gets blown out at BYU. Yeah. And I don't know if Self got into them or these guys regrouped, but seems to after that, they rode it out. They started to play a little bit better.
And then they...
And then they fell. What the rumor's been out. Self keeps saying he's not retiring. The rumor's out there. But for me, he just doesn't seem like he's into it as much as he has been in the last few years.
Yeah, and remember, that's obviously part of the Utah swing that they got swept in because they lost to Utah right before going out to BYU and getting absolutely crushed. So I think part of what this is for Kansas is, for whatever reason, these road games, these games away from home have not gone well for them. We talk about the Utah swing there. They went out to Iowa State, got completely smoked by that team. Baylor, we talked about that comeback. We referenced that. They were up by double digits at halftime. They end up losing in the second half there. There's so many of these different road spots where Kansas has really failed to show up. And look at the neutral setting as well. UCF pushes them into overtime in the first round of the Big 12 where they face them. And then, of course, they lose by 11 to Arizona in a game in which Arizona kind of kept them at arm's length. I think that I just don't want any part of Kansas the way they're playing. Arkansas, it sounds like they're getting healthier. I don't know if the addition of Boogie Fland is bad or good, but you're getting a really high caliber player potentially back on the floor against a Kansas team that has shown that they have been very inconsistent when they're not playing at home.
Yeah, what John brought up there is really the interesting nugget. Is Boogie Fland going to be back? Apparently he went through a full practice. They were actually a little bit better without him down the stretch. I think they were 9-6 in conference play, in the best conference in America. Without him now, you do have Fierro still out, so you feel like you need a little bit more offense. I did bet the under. I have not done anything yet on the side, but I am kind of leaning Arkansas here. And one of the reasons why is because Cal was disappointing at the end of his tenure at Kentucky. Remember, got beat by St. Peter's in the first round. Got beat by Oakland. Jack Gelke, I think he just hit another 3, hit every shot in that game. And, disappointing. And it was disappointing then for Cal and ends up getting a parachute to Arkansas. It seems like nobody's talking about him now. It's just kind of like, oh, he's in the tournament, And I think maybe that's the way he likes it, where he's a little bit under the radar. And they've got, look, they got NBA players on that team, Arkansas. Even with the injuries, they still got a lot of talent. Would lean the Hogs here. I think, though, this may be a lower scoring game, that this may turn to a grind at the end, because you don't know if Boogie Flanton is going to be back. He's obviously super athletic and a potential NBA player, but is the offense going to bog down a little bit because he hasn't been playing for a while? So that's what I wonder here. Kansas, I think, they ran up and down, I think, toward the end of the year in the Big 12, but now you're getting, I think, a better defense here, so under for me.
I think a lot of people were talking about Calipari when he told his player to miss a free throw on purpose in a three-point game.
Maybe that's why you're losing in the first round every year.
Yeah, right.
Moving into the South JVT, Yale, Texas A&M. Yale's been a popular pick. Line 7.5, 139.
Yeah, I feel like Yale's a popular pick because of what we saw them do last year.
Right.
But having said that, I can understand it to a certain extent.
A lot of guys back.
Yeah, I haven't really been infatuated with Texas A&M. Because part of the thing here is, look, they're going to just play bully ball. They're going to chuck it up at the glass. They'll get second chance opportunities and see if they can generate their offense through that. It's worked for the season, but Yale's not a bad rebounding team. And so if your entire strategy is grab 40% of our missed shots and turn them into points, I don't know if that really works against Yale. So I think it's one of those we talked about, like with Georgia and Gonzaga. Yale stays inside the number. Texas A&M moves on. I think they got enough talent on defense to make that thing happen. But the percentages for Texas A&M across the board have been awful. And I don't think that this is going to be something that is going to be great for them when you're talking about covering by margin.
Jim?
Well, Yale, they have some great outside shooters, and they do rebound the ball well. They're very fundamentally sound. They're not as good as they might have been last year. They lost one of the players. They went to another club. I can't remember his name, but he's really a great player. 7-footer that plays like a guard.
Danny Wolf at
right.
Michigan. Yeah.
Yes. And I like Yale plus the points in this spot. I know they're not the same team that beat Auburn a year ago, but they can shoot the ball, and if they get hot from the outside, they're tough. And they do fundamentally rebound the ball very well. They're good at position. They get close to the rim. They take it off the rim. They're pretty solid inside. So that could nullify some of the strength that Texas A&M has. And I took the points with this.
Wes, let me ask you about it. This is the last game I want to bring up, and then we'll see if we have any questions and get our final four picks and all that kind of stuff. But I saved this one for last on purpose, and that's UC San Diego and Michigan. This game has had more talk than anything. The line's 2.5, 142.5 total. Do you like either side? Are people discounting that Michigan just won the Big Ten? Are they putting too much stock in UC San Diego? Or in your opinion, has Eric Olin really got a great squad in San Diego?
I am on America's upset here, and it seems like it is based on how it's been discussed. I took 3. It's now 2.5. I think you might be able to get 3 tomorrow with some late money on Michigan. But UCSD, look, they are a legit team. By the way, I was impressed when I first was like, okay, this team's pretty good, was when I watched them in December go to Utah State. And I know Utah State, a little bit overrated, we think, coming into the tournament, but that's a tough place to win.
Big time
for a low major program that,
and that's when they were playing well.
Right. One of the things UCSD does, if you watch them a little bit, they are the second best in the country at turning you over, and they don't press. This is just good half-court defense. That tells me you've got a really connected team. And they also don't turn it over. Very experienced, what the name you're going to want to know, Anawana Tate Jones, I believe I pronounced that first name right. Kind of a little bit like a point forward. So they've got a lot of seniors, very West Coast Drake, like Ben McCollum, guys that came from a lower level. And with Michigan couldn't make a jump shot for about a month. And then all of a sudden they got, some positive regression in the Big Ten tournament. They were underdog in all 3 games that they won in the Big Ten tournament against Purdue, against Maryland, and also against Wisconsin in the championship game. Now you come off that grind, that physical pounding you take in the Big Ten, and you got to play on Thursday against a UCSD team. Look, they're not going to be overwhelmed by the moment, I think. I think that there's a true belief here. So I hate being on the upset that everybody likes, but sometimes those come in. So I am on the Tritons here.
People have to remember, this isn't, I know it's the same San Diego, but it's not the same as the San Diego State team that we watched last night.
No,
This
they won
is
15 in a
much
row,
better
longest
this time.
winning streak in the country.
JVT, you on the upset too?
Of course. But to add to what Wes is talking about, he mentioned UC San Diego's ability to turn the ball over. Michigan's 323rd in the country in offensive turnover rate. They can't hold on to the ball to save their lives. I think this has been a team that has been really getting away with murder over the last few. They're 11-4, Michigan is, in their last 15 games with a negative 24-point differential. They've been barely getting by in some of these games. They've been getting smoked in the games that they have lost. Their offense has been abysmal when they can't hold on to it. And that's what happened. Look, they run most of their offense, so they're big, so that's going to happen, right? You're going to turn the ball over. But if you're going to give up extra possessions to a well-coached team, a team that is going to play slow, can shoot the ball pretty well as well, I think all of that lends itself to, in a tight spread, being able to win this thing and move on. I like the Tritons a lot here.
You jumping on the bandwagon too?
I totally agree.
Okay.
I totally agree.
We got 3, and I'm against everybody.
Oh, no.
I think Michigan wins the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually, though, doesn't the luck kind of work? Because you get a little luck in variance here, where Michigan, their last 7 games decided by 1 possession or less, they've been able to hang on and somehow find a way to win.
Right.
So
Well, they did catch Wisconsin on the 4th game in 4 days.
Yeah.
And that made a big, 6 out of 39 from 3. They're not going to have that kind of luck in this one.
What's your Final Four in winter, Jim? What do you got?
I'll give you the final 2. Houston against Florida, Houston winning.
I have Michigan State, Maryland, Duke, Houston, a Michigan State, Houston final, Houston winning the game. JVT?
I had Auburn, Duke, Houston, and St. John's. And as I like to make the joke in our guide over there, VSiN, out of all the people, I had the audacity to be the only one to pick Auburn to win the whole thing. So I will go with the Tigers.
that might be a good thing, though.
Yeah.
What do you got, Wes?
Because a lot of us were on the consensus. I have Auburn in the South. I think they're a mission team. I like these teams that got eliminated in the first round because I think when they bring their core back, they come back on a mission. I think Auburn is going to be in. I think Texas Tech, actually, in the West region over Florida in the Elite Eight. Both of those are mission teams, by the way. Early bounce last year, a lot of the core back. So Texas Tech. I'm going to go with Duke out of the East, even though there's still some questions about Cooper Flagg. I think he's going to go. And then in the Midwest, I'm going Rick Barnes, finally going to get back to the Final Four after 20 years. Tennessee over Houston in that regional.
Rick is finally getting some respect.
Yes. Auburn, Texas Tech, Duke, and Tennessee. Duke over Auburn in the final.
Okay. All right. Any questions before we ask Ray if he's got a question? Any other questions out
Ray
there?
has to have a question.
I know he does. I just want to see if anybody else does first. Chris.
A few weeks ago, we talked about Oklahoma coach getting bounced out. Oklahoma made the tournament. What happens to the coach?
I don't know. What I'm hearing right now is Porter's job is relatively safe now, but there is some talk that doesn't mean it's safe that he'll stay. So, but I hear his job is back to being safe. That's the last word I got on Oklahoma. Great matchup, though, with UConn because I don't know if Hurley's done with his guys. He said like 50% of my guys are transferring. They already know where they're going. Is he really in it? I know he doesn't want to get bounced as a defending 2-time champion. I know he's probably going to want to win game 1, and after that he might check out. Who knows? That's a great matchup. But any other questions? Ray,
I'm right here.
what's your question?
So I'm looking at the women's too, just to enhance the parlay a little bit because I like to have a little bit of fun.
Wait,
It's a little
has
top.
anybody here looked at the women's?
Connecticut and South Carolina, it looks like, when you look at women's basketball, I hate to say it, but it's pretty top heavy. It's going to be one of those two. Which ones would you guys link? Because that parlay, when you link them to the men's, is absolutely outrageous. We're talking like plus 2,800 if you could link the two.
Wes?
For the Super Bowl and it worked out.
Well, you're right, Ray. It is pretty chalk heavy, though. Even though there's a lot more good programs in women's basketball, it's usually the 1 seeds. Like the men's, you very rarely get the 1 seeds, and the women's, it happens routinely. This year, it's South Carolina, UCLA, USC with Juju Watkins, and then Texas. So I'm trying to think who might get knocked off. UConn is the 2 seed, by the way, in the Juju Watkins USC region. So maybe it could happen. AC Fudd is healthy now, and Paige Buckers is also healthy. So could definitely see that, but you don't want to go with too many upsets in the women's. South Carolina is still the most talented team, obviously the team to beat in the draw.
Yeah, go ahead. You got a question, Jim?
No, after. Go ahead. Let's stay with that.
I'll take everything Wes said. I'll take that.
Okay, I mean, I know
What's your
that
question?
not everybody bets the WNBA, but last year was a very positive year for me and a couple other people I know betting the WNBA, and that's starting. So do you follow that much? Do you bet on it much? What do you think?
I do follow it now, and I think more people are following it. And you talk to any bookmakers, you're getting a bigger handle, and I think it is the Caitlin Clark effect because you're getting more people watching the games, and because she's brought a new audience to the league, you're getting more people watching. So in the summertime, a little bit slow. You got baseball, but that's kind of all you got, and you want some more action. And so WNBA is, I think, drawing a handle, and then with the Aces success out here, you're getting some success. So I do bet WNBA.
So do I. Like,
I don't bet a ton. I'll bet a little bit. I think I try to gravitate towards some of the situational spots that seem pretty obvious out there.
Right.
They seem to have a little bit of value. The tough road trips, travel's getting better for them, but you make some of these tough swings that these teams have to play, the long trips out there, things like that, revenge spots. That's what I'll tend to play, but barely any volume for me.
there's some top quality kids coming out of college coming to the WNBA. It's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, Paige from UConn, the guard, is
Yeah.
going to be the #1 pick, we would think.
And the girl from USC.
She's only a sophomore,
Oh, she's not.
so not eligible, but
Now,
probably the best player in the
Wes,
sport.
we
right now.
can't let you out of here without mentioning golf.
Correct.
You've been doing amazing things in golf, so we have to ask you, do you have anything in golf this week or
For
next week?
the Valspar this week in Tampa, two players named Kim at the top. I played Tom Kim
Tom
and
Kim.
Michael Kim this week. Tom Kim, high 20s, low 30s. Michael Kim, about 35 or 40 to 1. Because Tommy Fleetwood is the favorite this week. But Tommy Fleetwood has yet to win on the PGA Tour. Has won a lot internationally, but I'm not going to bet Tommy Fleetwood at 10 to 1 to win. It's like if he beats me, he goes ahead and beats me. But you do got a good field down there at the Snake Pit down there at Innisbrook. So Tom Kim, Michael Kim, and I'm seeing who else I played. Will Zalatoris, who, by the way, is in the bad end of the draw. One thing you want to look at tomorrow, the wind is supposed to blow big time tomorrow afternoon. So you might want to play a lot more of the morning guys on Thursday in the tee times where the wind is not as big.
JVT, let me end with this because now we have the bracket we just went through, the NIT. What's your thoughts of this new tournament here in Vegas, the Crown?
It's another tournament. I think that's really about it. The field doesn't look particularly great. It's
No, it doesn't.
It's more basketball to bet. There's obviously going to be some motivation for these teams to win in it, so I think there's that to it. But I'm kind of of the mindset. I'm very surprised that these other tournaments continue to move on, to continue to live.
Yeah.
We'll see if maybe you got to up the ante in terms of some of these prizes for these teams. But I think that's what you're going to see. I mean, the CBI didn't even get enough teams in. Correct?
No, and I'm wondering because a few years ago we had this Vegas 16 that was 1 year that only had 8 teams. So
Yes,
I'm wondering
yeah.
if the Crown is going to make it past 1 year or if this is a one and
They
done
do
deal.
have Fox money behind it
Yep.
because it's Big 10, Big 12, Big East. So some of them teams are actually contracted to be in this event. But one of the things you saw, it's a one-night sample size, but last night in the NIT, and you're seeing it today, all these games are getting bet to the over. Because some of these teams, by the way, have been on spring break already, and now it's like they got to come back and play. So they're not interested in playing defense. It's more energy to play defense. So you're seeing a lot of high scoring, like you're seeing 7-8 point moves from the opener on the overs, and usually I won't follow that number, but they all got there last night pretty
Including,
much.
was there a triple overtime? Was it Chattanooga and what was the
Middle
other?
Yeah,
Tennessee
109,
was a great game.
103.
Because I put that on the stream last night because that San Diego State Carolina was such a blowout. So yeah, good games in these other tournaments and good betting opportunities. And I think a lot of the moves in these lesser tournaments are more sharp because a lot of the general public aren't paying attention.
Stick around, people. After the close, I'm going to announce 3 winners of bottles of wine, compliments of J. Lore. He is Jim Feist. I'm Tommy Canale. Wes Reynolds, Jonathan Von Tobel, JVT. Round of applause, everybody, for the guys on the panel. We'll be back next week with the colorful Alan Boston. We'll see you next week at Dom DeMarco's Pizzeria and Wine Bar.